your thoughts, just your initial thoughts on the fact that Alabama was ahead of Tennessee. Let's kind of break this down a little bit.
Okay. I think that Alabama was ahead of Tennessee for two big reasons, and that is the loss of Hendon Hooker and also the loss of against South Carolina and the way that Tennessee lost to South Carolina. So I think those are your two main factors. And I know a lot of people will bring up, well, the college football playoff committee is supposed to judge on this and this and this and this. And yes, they're supposed to judge on this and this and this and this, but they don't. If you've watched this show at all throughout, the time it's been on, you'll see that that's not always the case. They don't judge based off of this and this and this. But regardless, it doesn't matter if Tennessee's ahead or behind. Ohio State's getting in if somebody else falls. And that's it. That's all we need to know. I don't think there's going to be 3 people, to lose this weekend. And then it would make it relevant.
Now, I wrote a column that Tennessee is better off in the Orange and the Sugar Bowl from a recruiting perspective, and that's on offthehooksports.com. And I base that off of it's easier to get prospects out of South Florida than it is Louisiana. So for all the Tennessee fans that are upset that Alabama may one-up them with a head-to-head loss, Caleb, I think you're better off in the Orange Bowl than the Sugar Bowl. We could debate that. But ultimately, the head-to-head, I think, does matter quite a bit because it may not determine who makes the college football playoff, but in its essence, sport is who wins, who loses. And for them not to be above Alabama is just bizarre to me. I don't care how they lost. I don't care that Hendon Hooker's out. That, to me, just doesn't register, quite frankly.
Yeah. It's funny. We spoke on Saturday, and I kind of made the case for why the college football playoff may have had a point to put Alabama ahead because I still said, gun to my head on a neutral field right now, I pick Alabama to win with Joe Milton as the starting quarterback. But
I would as well.
I did some research, exhaustive ESPN.com research the last 2 days. It's not just head-to-head. It's beyond a travesty that Alabama's ahead of Tennessee. There's head-to-head where Tennessee beat Alabama. Then you've got Tennessee and Alabama common opponents. Tennessee beat LSU by 27 at LSU. LSU beat Alabama. Not only that, Tennessee beat Vanderbilt by more than Alabama beat Vanderbilt. And that was with Joe Milton, funny enough. On top of that, Alabama's got 3 wins against 8 and 4 teams. Those are their 3 best wins. Tennessee's 2 losses are better than any of Alabama's best wins. Like, South Carolina's the top 20 team now because they just beat Clemson. And Georgia's obviously a better loss. So Tennessee's 2 losses are literally better than any Alabama win you can name. There's no metric Alabama should be ahead. But I am with you guys. It may, in a backdoor way, work in Tennessee's favor because neither Alabama nor Tennessee is going to the playoff. I don't care if TCU, Michigan, or Georgia, I don't think any of them really has to play this weekend. I think they're all automatically in at this point. Yeah, even TCU. And, no, if TCU loses, Ohio State's in. I'm sorry. But if TCU and USC lose both, TCU will still be in then as the 4th seed. So I think the only team outside of the top 4 that has a chance to get this sneak in is Ohio State. And so I don't care. Again, even if TCU and USC both lose, you're not putting 5 and 6 in at that point. You're kicking USC out and keeping TCU and Ohio State in.
Joe says we can't slip to the Cotton Bowl based off people I've talked to. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're fine there. Amanda, which loss was worse? Outside of the Hooker injury, was it South Carolina? Tennessee lost to South Carolina, or was it the way Ohio State lost to Michigan at home? Which loss was worse?
I'm going to say that Tennessee lost to South Carolina was worse, just because South Carolina up to that point did not look good. They didn't look good. No one thought they were good. Michigan, you can make an argument. I mean, it was an ugly loss, don't get me wrong. But Michigan's also, number 2 in the nation. So it's difficult to really say that loss that Ohio State took at home against Michigan is uglier than that South Carolina beat down of Tennessee. I mean, no one, and it's more than just what happened on the field. I think it's more of there's a lot of what happened off the field to make Tennessee look so bad against South Carolina, because they looked like a completely different team. And I think a lot of people have pointed that out, like, and are upset, and rightly so. What happened? Why? We should be in the playoffs now, but we got beat handedly by South Carolina.
Caleb, yeah. I mean, it was the collapse in Columbia that won't be forgotten anytime soon. One of the most damaging losses to a program, a season in recent history. I go back to the 2001 SEC championship game. The other issue that I have ultimately with the way things are set up now this will change somewhat, because you'll have 4 conference champions that will make the 12-team college football playoff when it goes into place by 2025 at the latest. Is that right, Caleb? And
I think 26 at the latest, but could be 25.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so when it goes into place, but they'll only take 4. So really, you have an SEC championship game that has 0 drama. LSU cannot get in with 3 losses. Georgia's going to get in no matter what, and they'll probably play at the same place, because I would imagine, I don't know, they could be 2 or 3, but maybe they would drop to 4 and they would play in the Mercedes-Benz Bowl again for the semifinal.
Talking about if Georgia lost?
If Georgia lost, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're really, Caleb, there is no, I don't like where the sport's headed with the conference champion. That should mean something, and right now it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it. I didn't mind the BCS. Everybody hated it. BCS is looking pretty good right now, guys, because right now, we know who the 2 best teams in the country are. It's Georgia and Michigan. There's no question. Sorry, TCU fans, you're not on the same stratosphere as Georgia and Michigan. And honestly, Michigan may not be on the same stratosphere as Georgia either, if we're being honest. But they're definitely on a different stratosphere from TCU.
The BCS ranked Alabama ahead of Tennessee.
They did.
Oh, yeah. The BCS ranking still exists? I didn't even follow.
Yeah.
There's I made reference to that on, if you want to check out the column on offthesports.com, that's a plug. But yes, it did still have Alabama ahead of Tennessee.
There's a throwback on this. Intriguing, by the way, Dave, you remember this, 2001, when Tennessee lost to LSU in the SEC title game. Tennessee was 10-2 at the time. Florida was 9-2. Florida jumped ahead of Tennessee, even though Tennessee had just beaten Florida, and they got the BCS bid over Tennessee to the Orange Bowl that year, when Tennessee had to go to the Citrus Bowl.
In 2001?
2001, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And
it's that's a similar situation if you look at it.
Very similar. It was a travesty that Tennessee was behind Florida. The only difference that time was you could at least say they had a common opponent, a couple of common opponents with LSU and Georgia. Florida blew out both of them, and Tennessee lost to both of them. So a little bit not as clear cut as this time, in my opinion. But yeah, I think the BCS would have worked fine, and that would have actually brought more suspense to the conference championship games this week. But I'm with you. The setup right now, when you're just about the 4 best teams, you've really eliminated the value of conference title games. I think most fans of college football aren't happy that they're being played this weekend, because you're kind of looking at it like you don't really want the whole mess that could be created if Georgia, Michigan, and TCU lose.
Here's my issue with it. You're coming out in the weeks before for a television show to sell more advertising, which is essentially what that is about, the college football playoff selection show. You're coming out weeks before and you're setting a precedent that you have to stick by. So Alabama and Tennessee don't play. It doesn't matter. There's no drama in the SEC this weekend. That to me is really troubling. Maybe it's a one-off, Amanda, but the fact that you have 3 teams that are that were in the mix last week, and now you only have 1, and we know what it's going to be. Alabama could sneak in there, maybe, probably not. That to me just takes all the drama out of the championship weekend for the SEC.